Welcome to the Subjective Professor podcast, where we reject coercion and hypocrisy. This is episode 316, and we're going to talk about the housing crash around DC. I guess sometimes some of these episodes are just a fact-checking episode, but I saw a post from Darth Powell on X at Vlad the Inflator. I love that. I love that handle. That's just great. Anyway, this is what he had written in his post, accompanied by a picture. So the caption was, "The wildest thing is happening near Washington, D.C. Here is Arlington, Virginia. Everything is being put on the market." And so I went to, and so basically there was a screenshot of like a, if you know what Willow is, you can go there and you look up properties that are up for sale, and you can see the prices that are being asked for. And if you are sort of zoomed out a little bit, you can see basically uh, a rough overview of how many and where the properties that are up for sale are. So I typed in Arlington, Virginia, and it looked remarkably like the screenshot that was in the X post. And so, wow, okay. So then the question is this normal? Is it the time of year where people are going to put up their properties for sale? Someone in my church recently, a few years ago, put a house up for sale, and you know, I, because I live in the church rectory, I'll never buy a house, and so I was kind of curious how the process was, and there are buying and selling seasons, things you need to do to get the house, for the curb appeal, as they say, to try to make it look attractive. And timing is very, very important, and also et cetera, et cetera, so all that. So there are seasons. There are times when houses are more likely to be put up for sale than others. But, digging a little bit further, how much of this is affected by the DOGE cuts, layoffs, and supposed firings that are happening all over Washington, D.C. So I looked up some of the local news, and it seems to depend on the realtor who's being interviewed. Some have mixed reactions. So that's Fox Business says that it's mixed reactions. And then some say, nope, no change at all. And that was Washington, NBC. So perhaps it's hard to say, but one can hope that this is actually what's happening. People see the writing on the wall. They see that either they're going to get laid off or probably going to get fired, so they're going to have to sell their house. I looked around a little bit more, and I saw even some posts on Reddit that said that in their neighborhood, a lot of people were working remotely to Washington, D.C. So they moved into the area, but they were working remotely, and there was no way they were going to, go back to in-person work. And so they were going to have to sell their house. So it's hard to say. It depends on who you talk to. Perhaps it's anecdotal, and maybe it seems like a lot more, but even just a rise in the percentage of a couple percentage points, like 2 or 3% might seem like it's catastrophic. But we'll see, right? This is just the beginning. Hopefully, there are going to be a lot more cuts, in which case maybe the real estate market around Washington, D.C. will crash. Who knows, right? But then, as I keep saying in a lot of these episodes, there is a sovereign debt crisis that's coming. A lot of people don't know how that's going to play out. Some people are speculating that the gold relocation from London to New York, I think, is due to repatriation and an impending gold revaluation, etc. There are all these different theories. Who's to say? And then those cryptic remarks from Besant, who says that they're going to revalue or put to work some of the assets that of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. I don't know, some of the assets of the U.S. government, put them to work. What does that mean? No details are coming. How much of this is just simply that 4D chess that Trump is doing, where he's, doing so many things all at once. Some of it is fake. Some of it is just he just floats those words out there just to upset people, to get people distracted so he can get on with his true agenda. How much of that is really going to happen? Who knows? So it's sort of a wait and see kind of situation. I'm sorry, I don't have more than that. However, just to spice things up a little bit, I used to say in class that 9 of the 10 top richest, wealthiest neighborhoods in the country are around Washington, D.C. I might have read that wrong, but it was several years ago, and I just kept saying that every semester. I think I even had a link at some point, but things have changed. And I tried to find that article again. Of course, I couldn't find it. But what I did find instead was an article that said 9 of the top 100 richest places in the country are around Washington, D.C. by income. And so this is from 2020 from WTOP News. That was an article. Oh, I didn't read it. Oh, but anyway, but we go on. So 9 of the 100 richest as by that one website, news site, and then Yahoo Finance, it said the top 50 neighborhoods as of February 2025. Of the top 50, four are in around Washington, D.C. And once I read the list, I realized, wow, we're talking about around New York City, California, really, really wealthy neighborhoods there. And so Washington, D.C., which doesn't have a whole lot of sightseeing, in terms of beautiful venues like beachfront or, things of that nature, um, doesn't really offer that. So you have these really nice neighborhoods there. And the four that were listed in Yahoo Finance was Great Falls, Virginia, that was ranked 8th, McLean, Virginia, that was 12th, Wolf Trap, Virginia, never heard of that, 22, Vienna, Virginia, that's ranked 44. In the entire country, keep in mind. And what's so crazy is that I knew people from these neighborhoods, and it never occurred to me that they were that wealthy. And then creators.com. The title is Seven Wealthiest Counties Are All Suburbs of DC and San Francisco by Terrence P. Jeffrey. And so this I think is by, I don't know how this probably, well, it says by median income, which is interesting because the previous one was also that way. But it's saying that the seven wealthiest counties are suburbs of DC and San Francisco. So Loudoun County, Virginia was ranked number one. Then came Falls Church, Virginia. Then California. Then Fairfax County, Virginia. Then California. Then Howard County, Maryland. Arlington County, Virginia was 10th. Howard County was 7th. Arlington, Virginia was 10th. And what the person wanted to note, the author Terrence P. Jeffrey, who won a Pulitzer Prize for investigative journalism. So even you may not recognize the website, but the individual, he seems to be old school investigative reporting, if you follow me. But he noted that all of these neighborhoods are represented by Democrats. So isn't that interesting that these wealthy neighborhoods, the person that's representing them is a Democrat, which means that most of the people who live there are Democrats, right? So the bureaucracy, one might imagine, in Washington, D.C. is more controlled by Democrats than Republicans, which might explain why the Democrats are just having a freak out session right now when it comes to DOGE and all of their activities. Now, I do want to say, so that's the richest neighborhoods of an America discussion, but it's not just people in Congress who are living in the suburbs of Virginia. I mean, it's a pretty big area, and Congress and their support staff can't take up all of those neighborhoods. And so what you realize is that there are a lot of business type uh, organizations, right? Contractors, people. And when I say contractor, I'm not talking about your plumber. I'm talking about like Lockheed Martin. They're in that area. Yeah, yeah, someone I know needed a religious exemption for the COVID jabs, and I gave her one. I hadn't seen her in years, but her pastor wasn't going to do one for her, so I said, sure, I'll do it for you. But anyway, yeah, so lots of military contractors are there. Any large like union head offices are in DC, and so all of the people who work there, they have to live in the surrounding suburbs, right? So lobbyists, diplomats, support staff, and then of course all of the people who work to support those support staff, right? Milton Friedman, in his Free to Choose book from the late 70s, and then his video documentary in 1980, produced by PBS after he won his Nobel Prize for economics, he discussed that or right, power attracts money and those people who want to take advantage of both. So it's not just in the construction of these glamorous buildings, right? These government, ginormous government buildings that you see all around Washington, D.C. to house all of the bureaucracies, but also the buildings for all of the lobbyists, the people who go there to try to work, the people that they know who are in Congress to get some kind of edge over their competitors. And since they're doing it, their competitors have to go to Washington, D.C. and somehow get some love from Congress, right? But and so then it's all the lobbyists, and then the people who work for all of the government contractors, right? So DOD personnel, and what is it? Ron Paul was saying that there's like a ridiculous number of DOD, Department of Defense, civilian workers, and they all live around that area as well. Um, so I have relatives who live in the DC area, and yes, they work for the Department of Defense, the DoD, and that's where they live. They all live in the suburbs. So if Trump continues to slash government, then it we may very well see a lot of people putting up their homes for sale, right? So just to reiterate, so Milton Friedman says that as government gets bigger, you see more people going to Washington, D.C. to try to manipulate all of that power and money to come their way. And a lot of politicians know that this is what happens, which is why they try to get elected so they can be the person who receives all those kickbacks, insider tips, and whatnot, and enrich themselves, which is why, once again, we're talking about the the wealth of a lot of members of Congress, right? That they have a $200,000 a year job, yet they have investment portfolios in the millions. Like, how does that work? How does that happen? Nancy Pelosi, of course, being the most notorious of savvy investors, shall we say? I mean, something like 100 million. Her portfolio is like $100 million. How does that happen unless you have all of this corruption working in your favor? So right now, Trump seems to be encountering a lot of resistance, mostly from Democrats, right, and the mindless NPC supporters of the Democrats, right, the non-thinking, tell me what I need to say type people waiting for their instructions to know how to answer other people's questions. So all those people are throwing up a lot of resistance, and so who knows how far this is going to be able to go. The initial push seemed to be pretty sort of mind-blowing, caught a lot of people off guard, and that was very, very clear. But can the momentum continue? Will he just sort of fizzle out and then use the initial, you know, USAID success to intimidate all the other bureaucracies to fall in line? Hopefully not. Um, my hope is that he doesn't stop, that he has to really gut the government. I mean, he's floated the idea of cutting the Pentagon's budget by 50%. Yeah, yeah, do it, right? Cut the government, the entire government, the way that Musk cut the Twitter staff by 80%. Yeah, he's got to do that to government. And if he does that, then the lobbyists have nowhere to go. There's no one to try to manipulate to have more money come their way. A lot of bureaucracies will have to fade as they decline in influence and budget. They have no control over the money any longer. So there's no point to go to DC anymore. Maybe all those lobbyists will then have to go to state capitals or city halls, Maybe that's where they have to go. But the big difference there is that state governments can't print money like Washington, D.C. can. Right, so they can't just endlessly create inflation like the Federal Reserve can, which is why, the Fed has to be audited. The Treasury has to be audited. Is there really gold in Fort Knox or not? All of this stuff, all these questions need to be answered. And then I think also what's holding things up a little bit is the nomination or the confirmation of Kash Patel. Tulsi Gabbard now getting confirmed. You might think that Trump and other people in his administration will start getting more accurate information with what's happening all over the world in terms of the military. And then Kash Patel, if he does become the FBI head, maybe he does start cleaning house there as well, and then exposing all of the corruption that we'd had to suffer through for the last 8 years, right? Because the Trump presidency was rampant with betrayal, backstabbing, and not doing what Trump told them to do. They openly lied to him, not saying that he was perfect, but it would have been a lot better, I should think. So there, as Glenn Greenwald said, there is a massive opportunity before us. I'll read from a tweet that he had made. Those who failed or refused to see the massive opportunities from this Trump-led realignment and instead enslaved themselves to the broken, ossified, unimaginative, status quo perpetuating Democratic Party are some of the dumbest people on the planet. Well said. Couldn't have said it better. It's pathetic to see all these people who are on a sinking ship and they're rearranging the deck chairs, right? They're still, hurling insults at the people sailing away in their lifeboats. It's interesting to see, right? But that kind of stubbornness, that inability to see something better and to continue to hold on to what they believed is true, but is not, never was, is something that they are hopefully going to have to feel the full weight of punishment, consequences, right? But what we're witnessing here is truly something. You can't step back and wonder, just wow, did that really happen? And because America is moving in this direction, we see the big contrast with the European countries. I mean, arresting people for social media posts, really? And so this is the way they're going to protect democracy? It just is pretty amazing. And I even began to think that maybe you might see a realignment, a Trump realignment, where the United States is closer to China and Russia than to the rest of Europe. That would be pretty crazy, interesting, right? And then if that was established, to try to see if a Democrat were to come to power uh, after the midterms or in the next presidential election, to try to see them trying to unravel everything that Trump had done for 4 years. That would be really, really interesting. But again, keep the eyes on the prize. slash and gut government to reduce it so that when everything does hit the fan, right, there's less for us to contend with in Washington and a more localized authoritarianism that we have to fight back against. But that's it for this episode. Hope you have a great night, and I'll talk to you next time.